So in terms of the work that Shimomura-san believes she's most known for is most likely Kingdom Hearts. A lot of people overseas play the game as well, and there are a lot of fans of the franchise, and so she's very honored to be a part of it. In terms of the proudest title or work, it's kind of hard to identify exactly which one because every single project she puts her full effort in. You know, it's kind of like raising her own child. She's equally proud of all of them, and she feels that everything is equally important. Sometimes she does kind of go back and listen to some of the music that many people have stated that they love, especially when she's a little bit down or she's in a rut and kind of losing confidence in some of her work. It really kind of energizes her and makes her excited again. But when she listens to some of the old tracks, she kind of gets embarrassed sometimes.
Can you describe your writing process a little bit? Are you the type of composer that will hum into your iPhone and record it? How does it work for you?
There's actually various ways, of course, and because there's so many music pieces that Shimomura-san needs to create. So there are moments where, you know, she allocates strictly to work. So she'd be in front of a piano or a PC to do her work. So, and lots of music come about that way. But there are instances, like you mentioned, where she randomly thinks of a melody spontaneously. It could be like right at your door as you're setting out to go outdoors, and then she thinks of a melody, and so she would kind of keep on humming it and then run to her workroom, or when she's at Square recording and she's on her way home, there are times where, you know, she's at Shinjuku Station in a corner humming into an iPhone, just like you had mentioned right now. So it really varies. It's just depending on the circumstance that she's in. It pops up randomly sometimes. So she really just started off as a fan initially. Prior to joining Square, she was recommended Final Fantasy, the original game, to play it. So she really played through 1 and 2. 3, unfortunately, she couldn't clear, but 4 and 5, she really got back into it and really played through the entire thing. And it's after 5, you know, of course, she believed that Uematsu-san's music was extremely beautiful, and that's kind of what pushed her to kind of join Square to do this type of work that she does now. Very influenced by Uematsu-san, and there's a lot that, you know, she learned from Uematsu-san, so that in itself is someone that she looks up to. But also, and the other fact that she was also a fan to begin with of his work. So it's kind of difficult to pinpoint what it exactly is, but I mean, he's a very talented, amazing person, and she's always been moved by his music and wondered, you know, how he creates his music. And so after kind of meeting Uematsu-san, speaking to him on numerous occasions, just casually even, about his background and the music that he liked, you know, that in itself was very informative and interesting to hear.
I know that he's a big fan of classic rock. Is that a lesson that you learned as well? Look to classic rock for some inspiration for Final Fantasy music?
So she doesn't necessarily look to, you know, a specific genre for inspiration, so to speak. You know, Shimomura-san herself, her background is in classic music. That's what she studied growing up. And she didn't really study so heavily other types of genres in music. You know, she wasn't well abreast of those types of styles and genres, and so her stance is to kind of soak in everything that she didn't know. So it's not limited to, you know, classic rock or progressive rock. That's not what she seeks to find inspiration for Final Fantasy music, and none of it is intentional. But she would look to listen to all these types of music that she didn't know or she isn't acquainted with, and to try to kind of meet the demands that are requested of her in terms of the music people would like for her to create.
What did you learn the most about then when you were researching and getting ready to write the music for Final Fantasy XV? What area did you grow in the most?
So yeah, particularly with Final Fantasy XV, of course there was a request for something more bluesy in terms of American blues, so Shimomura-san listened to a lot of American blues to just get a little bit of inspiration from there. She also really likes to listen to bossa nova music personally as well, and there was also a demand for something bossa nova-like. She does have a tendency to start listening to that type of music when setting out to create music that fits the needs, but her biggest inspiration that she gets when creating music is from the visuals that she receives rather than the music itself. So that would maybe be screenshots of the fields or concept art. The inspiration that she gets from those visual pieces and assets are most important in her creation of music, especially because when you listen to music, you tend to get pulled in that direction. And so the most important thing is to look at these wonderful visual assets first, and then try to look within you to bring out something that would be best fit for those visuals. And that's what really creates something that's original.
Final Fantasy, even outside of Uematsu-san, has had such an amazing string of composers. I'm wondering where you feel like you can innovate or you can change things or move things forward as far as the implementation of music in the game.
Shimomura-san herself doesn't think to change Final Fantasy music. She's not really thinking big in that sense. What she's really focusing on is creating something that would be best fit for this universe and this world. And, for some reason, the team requested Shimomura-san to make the music for this Final Fantasy. So, hopefully she can create music that is distinctly Shimomura-san's pieces, that people will be able to identify as her pieces, and that in itself hopefully serves as its own uniqueness. So hopefully the idea is to create something that's very her, that's very Shimomura-san, but also best fits this universe and world. And as a result, it would generate something unique on its own. This is the first Final Fantasy music that Shimomura-san herself is creating, and believes that in itself would be a change of sorts for the Final Fantasy music history.
So she talks about, hoping to bring her style of music. How would she classify or define her style of music? Is it just that more classically based?
So this is a little bit hard to translate maybe, but oftentimes fans say Shimomura Bushi, which is like a Shimomura-san likeness in essence. And this isn't something that Shimomura-san herself is conscious about, and she's kind of always wondering what that is. But oftentimes it's described as something that has a classical base, but that also incorporates a sense of rhythm. And the battle music that's generated out of that is invigorating. And that's not something that she's consciously trying to do, and not something that's clearly defined personally, but is just a natural result of what she creates. And so, the people that are around her, the people that listen to her music, gradually approve of what she's been doing, and that forms her style.
You mentioned that it was a little more bluesy. How else would you describe the overall direction for the music in 15? Is there a central theme, or does it vary region to region?
Specifically with the American blues, that was specific to, for example, like an American diner type of setting. And so there are differences in terms of points and locations. That said, when you're looking at the entirety of Final Fantasy XV, it's definitely more geared towards the direction of a fantastical kind of orchestra with rhythm elements integrated.
So how's the writing process going for 15? Are you far in the process, just at the beginning? And how freely have the ideas been coming to you?
There's a lot of pieces that have already been created at this moment in time. But of course, music, where you kind of come up with the idea and come up with the melodies, it comes in waves. And so there are instances where things go really smoothly, and that's approved with like one take, a single take basically. But then there are certain instances where, it doesn't sit well on the first run. So it's, both essentially, but when you're looking at in total, Final Fantasy XV music, there haven't been many cases where we've received complete rejects. So, the music itself would be okay, but then they would be requesting maybe minor retakes, like fixing the timing on certain points or whatever it may be. So all in all, I believe it's going well. Not very many complete rejects in the bunch at the moment.
So you've worked on so many projects. I'm curious how working on a mainline Final Fantasy game compares to other projects. Is it more of a workload? Do you feel more pressure, less pressure?
Initially, this project was not a numbered mainline Final Fantasy title, so it's a little bit weird to put it in these words, but there wasn't that much pressure. Rather, I didn't really feel that much pressure at that time. And then later on, it turned into a numbered mainline Final Fantasy title. And so maybe I would have felt a little bit more pressure if we had been told that this is a Final Fantasy XV project from the get-go. But, at the point that it turned into 15, some of the tracks had already been created. So at this point, it's really about doing the best that I can to create the best music for Final Fantasy XV, and that in itself is what I'm wrapped in right now. So don't feel so much pressure in the moment.
Because having that title change just makes you realize, like, oh, it's just a project. I can tackle this after all. I don't need to listen to my older music to gain confidence again.
So yeah, it's not to say that I would lose confidence because of the title change or the title. Obviously composing tracks, it comes in waves. There are times when you're on a roll, there are times when you're a little bit down. There were, of course, moments then I was on the downside, and so in those cases, obviously we can go on the internet. I would kind of read fan feedback. That would really make me uplift my mood again and kind of energize me once more. And so, yeah, that's definitely occurred during the process of this project as well.
Is the message that people should tweet nice things at her to improve the soundtrack of Final Fantasy XV because it'll put her in a better mood?
So in Japan, there's a saying where, you give positive feedback, positive input, and that's how you kind of grow. So of course, when we get, feedback and kind of messages from fans that say that they like my music, it's very uplifting, and it does want me to, try harder and do my best. And so there are times where, I will, at times, not all the time, but look at, Twitter or other mediums for feedback. Yes, whether, we receive criticism, of course, I'll take the criticism and, take it wholeheartedly and consider it as well. But all the good feedback is equally wonderful. And so anything that I can get from our fans, that would be much, much appreciated.
When players finally get their hands on Final Fantasy XV, what impression do you hope your music makes on them? What do you hope is going to be their takeaway thoughts on the soundtrack?
So believably, in terms of the importance of game music, it's really about it fitting, whether it's fitting to the story, the visuals and the atmosphere that it creates. And once all of that naturally fits, it's not necessarily about having the music come first. It's really about the atmosphere first, and then players kind of immersing themselves in that atmosphere, and then suddenly realizing, oh, this is a great place. But oh wow, this music is also equally great, isn't it? It's kind of positioning it as kind of background music in a sense, how it's not necessarily jutting out and kind of forcing itself on those that are listening to it, but rather those that when it's coming into your ears, you realize that it's kind of great music. In the end, it'd be great if people look at a particular scene and then that kind of BGM starts to float into their minds and kind of play in their minds. And equally, when people are just listening to the music, that game scene kind of pops up in their mind. And so she believes that hopefully this music will do the same in terms of the results. It's not something that's standing out so much, but kind of slowly seeps into your memories, and it's just instilled in your memories. So earlier, she did mention, she doesn't feel too much pressure and is, naturally just doing her best to create the best music for this game. But that said, it is a Final Fantasy numbered mainline title, and so she will do her best until the end. Whether that means she'll fall at the end in terms of, she'll be beating herself down, trying to get the best music out there for all of our fans. But until the end, she will work very, very hard, and so she hopes that everyone looks forward to the music and to the game and its outcome.